So start from this bodily appearance, you said?
Yes, just repeat maybe because this is
Okay.
what we covered. Yeah.
Yeah. So this bodily appearance is not all. The form deceives. The person is a mask. Hid deep in man, celestial powers can dwell. His fragile ship conveys through the sea of years an incognito of the imperishable, a spirit that is a flame of God abides, a fiery portion of the wonderful, artist of his own beauty and delight, immortal in our mortal poverty. This sculptor of the forms of the infinite, this screened, unrecognized inhabitant, initiate of his own veiled mysteries, hides in a small dumb seed his cosmic thought.
Yeah. Thank you. So this was what we were towards the end covering up last time regarding humanity, the man. This bodily appearance is not all. Face values deceive. The form deceives. The person is a mask. Hid deep in man, celestial powers can dwell. So this is the possibility, and all of us are full of full of these infinite possibilities. And as and when we become capable, ready, those possibilities manifest themselves through the matter. His fragile ship conveys through the sea of years an incognito of the imperishable, as if the imperishable, the one who is immortal, is traveling in disguise, in incognito mode in this fragile ship, which we call as human body, human form. A spirit that is a flame of God abides. This is what lives in us. A fiery portion of the wonderful, artist of his own beauty and delight, immortal in our mortal poverty. So, all our human life, most of the human life, we live as uh, really a poor fellow, asking. And because we recognize, we identify ourselves with the mortal being that I am. I identify myself with the body, the mind, the thought, the feelings, right? The past, the future. This is what I identify myself to. And that's why I feel very poor and live like a mortal poverty, a poor man. While in me only the immortal is there, waiting to be revealed. This sculptor of the forms of the infinite, this is the one, this part, this portion of the divine in us. He is the one who is the creator of the forms of the infinite. He is the creator. He is the sculptor. This screened, unrecognized inhabitant. He is screened, he is veiled under the thick veil at the moment of ignorance, of separation, that I am separate and God is something separate. I am not God. There is this very big separation that we live in. And that's why the yearning begins then to find this union, because one cannot be satisfied living not as himself. So we are that divine essence, and we cannot ever get settled unless we become united with that, because that is who we truly are. We cannot be anything but our true self, and that's why it bothers us. That's why the restlessness continues throughout a lifetime, maybe many lives. This screened, unrecognized inhabitant, initiate of his own veiled mysteries, he is the one who is uh, responsible for making this life as a mystery. He is the one, the creator, and he is the one who is living through these mysteries also. Nothing is separate from him. He hides in a small dumb seed his cosmic thoughts. Now he is very fond of playing around. He is very fond of doing the Leela. So what he does is, for fun, he obscures the cosmic thought in a seemingly dumb seed. That is his play. No one would recognize that in a small dumb seed, the whole imprint of a beautiful tree, of a flower, is there in that small dumb looking seed. But that's what it is. That's what we see. And we cannot see that imprint. The seed veils the imprint. Yes.
Yeah, Monica, I have a question. Like, the last line, it says that the cosmic thought is hidden in that seed, right? It is there and it's hidden. But the third line here, where it said, hid deep in man, celestial powers can dwell.
Yeah.
That can that you stressed
Can.
on.
Huh.
So the powers are there, but they are veiled, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't recognize them, and that's what it said in the last line.
Yeah.
So here, why the word can? Why not just
Yeah.
dwell?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful thing. I also reflected upon it. Because it's like the more so we have discussed it many times that the journey is from the ignorance to becoming fully aware of who I truly am, and that may take several lifetimes. That actually takes several lifetimes to shed this veil of ignorance. Now the moment, as we will read further in the lines, that the moment we become capable of shedding off that ignorance, the ignorance is shed, the more of us, the more of the divinity is revealed to us. Now the more I become capable of channeling it, as if, the more it takes charge of me. Huh? So the more it takes charge of me. And now what happens is, as if there is a direct connection that forms between the instrument and that power, the power that can manifest itself out of this instrument. Now this dhara pravaha can start. Otherwise the obscurity is so much, as if there is all the power, but it is not able to dwell because there is hardly any space. It is full of ignorance. The moment ignorance begins to kind of shed it off, जगह बनती रहती है. Now I become available. Now I have space for the powers, so that they can dwell and do their work of creation, of manifesting the divine through the instrument. We will come upon these, the further elaboration on these also in the coming lines, that how this progression happens, the shedding of ignorance, and then human being capable of manifesting the divinity out, as if the divine works through uh, that person. Yeah.
Yeah, but the only, the word dwell kind of threw me off because dwell basically means lives or
Yeah.
exists, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not that it was kind of taking charge, right? Dwell with, it's just there, like in the seed, it's just there. So that was the,
So you
like,
remember,
kind of, yeah.
uh,
No, I
see.
understood what you said, that it becomes more real, right, when you are having that connection. So the only thing was because it's the word dwell, I was like wondering at the can, but of course it's bigger than what I can see. Yeah. What were you saying? What do I
No, I
remember?
was saying that jab Savitri, when we were discussing about Savitri earlier, so
Hmm.
there it was, oh, I lost my train of thought. Maybe I'll come to it later.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay. So, yeah. And then we go further. So, this was, I think we covered it in the last time. I was just reiterating. Yeah, who would like to read?
I'll go.
Yeah.
In the mute strength of the occult idea, determining predestined shape and act, passenger from life to life, from scale to scale, changing his image self from form to form. He regards the icon growing by his gaze, and in the worm foresees the coming God.
Yeah. So, you know, we don't remember these journeys, and we have, it seems to us that we have been a stone first, and then the consciousness has grown, become a plant, then an insect, then maybe a dinosaur, I don't know, you know, and this is how our consciousness has developed. That is the plan, that is the divine plan, according to, uh, okay. So Shreya says that she can't hear anything. Um, okay. Shreya, are you using any headphone or anything? Oh, you can't hear. How would you hear me? Okay, you are in the call. Okay, so I'll just continue. Mm. In the mute strength of the occult idea. Now, this is, you know, that the divine now is manifesting himself out through the billions of us, billions of us. And in each, through each creature, he is manifesting out a different idea. And that is why we say he is infinite, because we cannot put any limit to his creation. We cannot put any limit, the thought does not have any limit. The imagination can be can just go anywhere. So through his ideas, through his infinite occult ideas, which only he knows, he is expressing them out through, as said earlier, you know, through this dumb seed that comes into this form. And in that dumb looking seed, this imprint of the whole creature that is going to manifest out in form is there, right? So even when, you know, we talk about human beings, each human being, no matter billion trillions of us, each one is a separate unique combination, permutation combination, and we will never find exactly two human beings alike, whether we go into past or we go into future. So that is the divine, so that is connecting to the silent strength of that power of the idea that the divine wants to express through each and every creature that he forms, which is also called, you know, we call as the swabhav of that particular person or the creature. You know, that each swabhava is very unique in itself. And that's what, when we talk about swadharma or following our inner truth, you know, then we connect more and more to our swabhava, and then we begin to express it out in the form that it wants to express itself out. Yes, yeah, I'm sure it is much related to that dumbness. Yes, Taru. Yeah, yeah. Because it is not expressing, you know, the dumb seed at the moment is feels dumb, it's mute, although it is capable of much more, right, when the right nurture comes and the season comes. So I'm sure it must be there, yeah, that correlation. And that is determining predestined shape and act. So that is what we meant by when we were talking about that each creature is a unique combination of a certain quality, and that is what is present in the dump seed, which is later on manifested out in the form, determining predestined shape and act. Swabhava is already determined in the seed. It is there. The idea, the whole idea is there in the seed. Passenger from life to life, from scale to scale. This scale to scale is that from a single one-celled organism, we have now become the human complex multicellular beings that we are. The life actually started from a single celled organism. That is how each one of us started. So passenger from life to life, being a stone, being a plant, being an insect, this is how the soul journeys. Passenger from life to life, from scale to scale, from a one cell animal to a two cell organism to a multicellular complex being, changing his imaged self from form to form. So this is not, the images are not his true essence, yet they are the changing or evolving being that he is. So he is able to change or evolve through changing images of himself, changing his imaged self from form to form. This is the variety that we all go through. And again, a human being, the variety that we are right now, that is again a transition, that will go away, that will pass, just like the other forms have passed. He regards the icon growing by his gaze. Now, this immortal presence within us, the one who watches, the one who supervises this journey, he regards the icon. Icon is like a sacred picture, as if by gazing at this sacred picture of what is the potential of this being in evolution, as if something in me is sitting and gazing at the potential that one is capable of. And by that gaze, the icon grows, by that concentration upon, as if he is providing his energy to this movement, to this forward movement of life. He regards the icon growing by his gaze, owing to his gaze upon us, upon the evolving being. The icon is growing, the sacredness is growing, because he's concentrating, he's watching this evolution. Keep sharing as and when anything comes. And in the worm, he foresees the coming God. So his vision is so large, his vision is so far, that in when the being is a worm, even there he is able to see that yes, through evolution, once the veils of ignorance are shed, the awareness grows and grows and grows. Then I see the whole divinity manifesting in form one day. So when the worm form is there, even there he is able to see the divinity which will come in times and eons to come. We don't know when. Yeah. Yes, who would like to read?
Yeah, I'll go, Monica.
Yes.
At last, the traveler in the paths of time arrives on the frontiers of eternity. In the transient symbol of humanity draped, he feels his substance of undying self and loses his kinship to mortality.
No, this is also really beautiful. Yeah. So now, as the journey of the soul progresses, at last, the traveler in the paths of time, the journey is long. This reminds me of this Kabir bhajan. There is this song, Avadhuta Yugan Yugan Ham Yogi. He reminds that we have been on this journey towards complete union since ages and eons, referring to the journey of the soul from the beginning itself. At last, the traveler in the paths of time arrives on the frontiers of eternity. Now he is coming more and more closer to the godhood, which actually is the birthright, of that particular soul. Arrives on the frontiers of eternity, coming very, 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 very close and intimate to be the God that he actually is, in the transient symbol of humanity draped. And that is why also the stress of the human life, although it's not just one human life that we have, many, many human lives. And in the human lives, what one is capable of, this remembrance, the true remembrance of who I am, is not a possibility in the earlier forms. And that is why human life is uh, considered much important uh, than the previous life forms. Yeah, because the consciousness has grown, the consciousness has evolved so much that now it is now capable of being self-aware. It is capable of being aware and being remembering who I truly am, which was not a possibility earlier. Yeah. So now this traveler in the paths of time has arrived on the frontiers of eternity in the transient symbol. Again, transient, right? Because this form is also transient, just like other forms were. In the transient symbol of humanity draped, and this traveler is draped as if in the transient mankind, the man, a human being that he is. Now he feels his substance of undying self. When man is man, when man, through his evolution of consciousness and through shedding of veils of ignorance, becomes more and more aware, self-aware, then he touches something in himself which reminds himself of this undying self, which tells him that he is not actually the body, the mind, and the life. He is much, much, much more than the forms tell him that he is. And then, when he becomes more capable of being in touch or being aware of his true essence, then he loses his kinship to mortality. So earlier he was as if tied to mortality. That what should I do? This is the being I am. This is the limited being I am. Now what can I do? So he is very friendly with the mortal being that he is. But the more he becomes self-aware, the more through the evolution of lifetimes, the more I become self-aware, the more I lose this identification with the mind, with the thoughts, with the feelings, and with the body. All of them are still there. They are not going out of appearance. The appearance of the body is still there. The appearance of thoughts are still there. The feelings are still there. The emotions are still there. Yet, he is not identified with all those. So he is more comfortable being his true strength and the true divinity that he is. And that is what begins to manifest out through thoughts, feelings, and body also. So he loses his kinship to mortality. He is not identifying himself now as the mortal being. He's getting more and more stabilized in the immortality. That is what I truly am. Yeah. So it kind of drops away, that kinship to mortality, it sheds itself away. It's kind of more effortless. One does not have to put effort to it. So the more I stabilize through the evolution of consciousness and shedding of the veils of ignorance in the undying self, the more I see that without my doing, I lose the kinship to mortality. Right? Yeah. Yes. So who would like to read? Shreya, would you like to read?
Yeah.
Yeah, if she is able to hear. Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you guys now.
ठीक है, ठीक है.
Okay, I'll read. A beam of the eternal smites his heart. His thought stretches into infinitude. All in him turns to spirit vastnesses. His soul breaks out to join the oversoul. His life is oceaned by that super life.
Yeah. So now, as the evolution, so no, when we call evolution is nothing but, in one sense, as one interpretation, we can call it as a continuous shedding off of the ignorance. That is what we call as evolution. So the divine is there, yet it is veiled, and that is the Leela, it is veiled so that it can find itself out through the processes of lifetimes, which is nothing for him. A lifetime may be a huge lifetime for a human being, but in eternity, it does not mean much. So for us, it may mean like 80 years, 90 years, or maybe 2, 3 lifetimes. But in eternity, it is not much of a time. Okay, so this is the play that I will first lose myself, and then I will try to find myself out for fun. So now, when this evolution is happening, more and more ignorance is kind of dropping away, self awareness is coming. A beam of the eternal smites his heart. Now, as if heart is more and more becoming open. Kabir also says, "ऐसा ऐसा किवाड़ हिवड़े पे जड़िया, guru bina tala kaun khole." So it's not that the heart is not there. The heart is fully there, capable. Yet, owing to the veils of ignorance, locks are put on the heart. So the more we go through these experiences of life, through those experiences, the more we kind of challenging or unchallenging, whatever kind of experiences we go through, they open up our heart. The all the divine love is there, right there in the heart. What is there without love, anyway? But it is locked up, as if it's not open yet, owing to the veil of ignorance. So the moment the grace shines fully, the moment we become porous to receive grace, as if the heart opens a bit, a bit, a bit, a bit, and then this bit, kind of goes on and on and on. A beam of the eternal smites, as if opens his heart. His thought stretches into infinitude. Now the mind becomes more supple. How we are when we are living as the ego, and ego is nothing but, again, the veil of ignorance. And that this is the person I am, this is the family that I have, this is the past that I have, this is the future I will have. All the story about myself, all that I think about myself is the ego. That is the ignorance, and that separates me from the rest. So now, as the heart is touched by this grace, as the heart is available to receive this grace, something opens in the heart. His thought now stretches into infinitude, so the mind becomes more and more supple. I am not now allowing myself to be this rigid person who I was before. I am opening up to grace, I am opening up to life more and more, as and more I become more capable, because the mind also is able to be supple instrument. The mind has this flexibility. The mind is not just this rigid thing. And slowly we become available to that suppleness of the mind. His thought stretches into infinitude. All in him turns to spirit vastnesses. All in ourselves, as if it becomes available to the vastness that we truly are, which I was not able to be available to earlier. You know. So the more the evolution happens in time, in process in time, obviously, as and when each person is ready, uh, everything now turns towards this vastness, owing to this opening of the heart. His soul breaks out to join the oversoul. So as if we cannot help it. It's like as if it's a magnet that pulls us towards itself. Because that is what who we are. That is our true essence. We cannot ever be restful if not identified, if not moving towards. And when I say moving towards, it is again meaning shedding of the veils of ignorance. It's not that I have to move to reach myself. I am myself, but I don't know who I am. So his soul now breaks out of the shell of ignorance. The soul breaks out to join the oversoul. And this is what we mean by, I think, when we read texts and words of Sri Aurobindo and Mother, this is what we mean by spiritualization of consciousness. So one is psychicization. I would not go much in detail. I don't think I'm capable enough to go to details. So one is psychicization. Once we unite with the psychic, the veils of ignorance are shed. So the psychic is fully mature, it comes forward. And the other is the spiritualization, when there is unification with the divinity. More and more is possible, more and more is possible. There is no end to it. So his soul breaks out to join the oversoul. His life is oceaned by that super life. Now the life, the limited life of that being, little being that was, the little person that I was, it becomes capable of being oceaned, as if, it it surpasses the whole being. It overwhelms the whole being. The life is oceaned, taken in grip of, taken charge of by that super life. The divinity now has to shine. It's an irreversible process, as if. Yeah. Yeah. Oversoul can also be called as what we call as in Hindi Paramatma. One is Atma and then the other is Paramatma. Yeah. Yeah, who would like to read?
He has drunk from the breast of the world. A topless supernature fills his frame. She adopts his spirit's everlasting ground as the security of a changing world and shapes the figure of her unborn might.
Yeah. So when this is happening, grace, the being is more capable, more porous, as if to receiving the grace and letting the grace work through himself. So the mind, the thoughts, the vital means the emotions, the feelings, the emotions, and the body. So these three are what we call also read as triple knot that binds the being of the man, as if it is bound by all three. So the soul, which is actually limitless, it is bound on the mortal plane by the mind, thoughts, by the feelings, emotions, and by the body. This is what binds us to the mortal plane. Now, as the grace comes more and more, or the being becomes more and more receptive to grace, Kabir also, I think, at one point of time, uh, yeah, I will say it again. Kabir says in one particular song, I think which I shared also with you, Koi Nahi Apna, there he says, Tikudi में से जान निकल गई, मुंह पर ढालो ढकना. So Tikudi means that the triple knot of the mind, the life, which we call as prana or emotions or feelings, the life energy, the mind, the life, and the body. So these are the three pillars, as if they bind the man to the mortal plane, the soul to the mortal plane. The soul, which actually is limitless, is bound by these three pillars. And that is our challenge. That is what suffocates us, and that is what is the journey. So with the touch of the grace, the mind, the feelings, and the body, all of them become more and more porous to receive grace, the light that is already available. The mind, the life, and the body, they become more porous as the veils of ignorance are shed to uh, to receive, to shine out this grace. And now now the soul can soar out of this confinement in the limited mind, limited body, limited feelings. And that is what was shared earlier, that all in him means the mind, the body, and the vital. All in him turns to spirit vastnesses. This is what we were talking of earlier, in the earlier few lines. Yeah. And this unification now begins to happen. The individual unites with the universal when he breaks out to join the oversoul. Yeah. So the identity that I was holding on to, that this is the limited person I am, this is the limited qualities I have, I cannot be ever more than this person who I am. This separation, owing to the forgetfulness of who I truly am. Now this separation is more and more dissolving. So I'm recovering my original identity. So when we say unification, spiritualization is happening, it is more a recovery. As if I am waking up from one dream after the other, one dream after the other. I am waking up from the layers of dreams to recover my true essence. So nothing is lost. Nothing forever was lost. It is just that I went into a deep, 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 deep sleep. Dream after dream, dream after dream. I went into dream, into a dream, into a dream, into a dream. So as I am waking up from these dreams, as I am becoming capable of waking up from these dreams, I am recovering my unity with the divine essence. This was just elaborating further on the lines in yellow. Yeah. And now the life is not just bound by the ego, the limited self that I was living like earlier. Now the divine can flow through this porous instrument, if I can call it that. Yeah. So then he has drunk from the breasts of the mother of the worlds. This is what we mean. We express in language, we try to give these pointers because we can only give pointers to these happenings. Nothing exactly can catch the essence. We can only give pointers. So the life force that is pervading the universe, the Shakti, which is the mother of all the worlds, of all the creation, that now as if is nurturing this being who is becoming more and more porous. The energy, it's the life force is brimming through this being that is becoming more and more porous. Imagine that we have these pipes, the drainage pipes, and the more clean those pipes are, the more flow is capable of going through those pipes, just like that only. So the more the veils of muck, the veils of ignorance are shed in evolution, the more life force as if is able to flow through. I am drinking, one is able to drink that life force. He has drunk from the breasts of the mother of the worlds. A topless supernature fills his frame. Now as man is growing, in psychological and spiritual growth, and he's now shedding the layers of ignorance, uh, more and more infinite joy, knowledge, bliss, strength, all that he becomes capable of receiving. Now topless, I'm assuming, just feel free to uh, kind of share on it. I'm assuming that topless would be that there is more to it, there is more to it, there is more to it. So you can never put a frame to this supernature. So that's why maybe topless, that there cannot be ever a face or a kind of a bar on it, that this is it, right? So more and more, as we say that the divine is infinite, it's anant, and it is able to sustain us more and more and more as we grow in evolution and in our consciousness. Yeah, so there is no limit to this progression. A topless supernature fills his frame. From light to greater light, from knowledge to greater knowledge, from awareness to more awareness, from bliss to greater bliss. It just goes on and on. Now the joy one is able to kind of have the delight of that joy, the play, rather than the Maya that was earlier, which bothers most of us. Yeah.
So that that quote from Rumi, I'm forgetting the lines that the closer I get, the further I see I am, like
Yeah,
something. So
yeah,
again, that topless, that you see how limitless it is. Like the
yeah,
more you go in,
yeah,
so that yeah.
yeah, beautiful. Yes. So now this mother of the worlds, who is now nurturing the being, she adopts his spirit's everlasting ground. Now, this is the journey of us as a human being. Now, as and when we become capable, we are as if adopted. We were hers. Yes, we were hers. But we had, as if we had taken away from the mother nature, mother of the worlds. We have taken away ourselves from the master to whom we belonged. So now, as and when we grow in surrender, the mother adopts this child of hers, his spirit's everlasting ground, so that the mother can now work through this spirit. So the spirit's everlasting ground is adopted by the mother to be serving as the divine instrument, which is actually the birthright for each and every creature on this planet. This is what we are here for. We are not here for anything else but to work for the divine, in the divine, with the divine, because divine is only who we are. We enter into forgetfulness, and forgetfulness also belongs to the divine only. We don't have to take it on our own shoulders, because everything is that only. Everything is that. So forgetfulness is also his, ignorance is also his. And as and when one kind of evolves in consciousness, ignorance by effort or by no effort is by in time and time, by and by, it is shed, kind of just like old skin is shed when these forest creatures are there, and snakes keeps on shedding the old skin, like that. So now the mother is able to adopt the spirit's everlasting ground as the security of her changing world. Now the changes are there. The world is ephemeral. Everything is changing. Yet she can do her eternal work through this being. This is the security. She is as if she is seeding into that being that becomes capable now. She works in the spirit's everlasting ground as the security of her changing world. This is something, we hear about masters, avatars, where the divine is working through them and through each of us also, in whatever capacity we allow. The divine begins to work through each one of us in its own unique ways as the security of her changing world, and shapes the figure of her unborn mites. you know uh, Unborn mites, because there is so much in the universe, there's so much in the infinity, in the divinity, which is still to be expressed. Unborn mites. There is so much, because the divine is infinite. We don't even know the capacities that we may have. Now, as we allow the grace to work upon us, and this is very much related to what Mother shares in prayers and meditations, how she allowed, step by step, baby steps, with more and more surrender, allowed the grace to work upon her. Many a times we understand, many a times the mind cannot fathom. Even then, one is on his knees, her knees, and allowing the grace to act. And this is so subtle. The more we put in words, I feel that, maybe one is capable or not to touch what one wants to point at. Uh, I think this can only be felt by each of us, or maybe expressed through pointers and signals, but nothing can really kind of directly hit at it. All words are just pointers. So, this is how the mother, the grace, the divine Shakti works through the individual, shapes the figure of her unborn mites. Yeah. Yes.
Immor- immora- immor- Immortally, she conceives herself in him. In the creature, the unveiled creatrix works. Her face is seen through his face, her eyes through his eyes. Her being is his through a vast identity. Then is revealed in man the overt divine.
Yeah. Yes. Now, this is also a connection with the what we were reading earlier. The celestial powers can dwell. Now, the as the being is becoming more surrendered, more porous and capable, now the powers are able to kind of reside. Yeah. Now I remember what I was going to share earlier, that uh, that in Savitri, the powers, the power, the when we've talked about the god of love, he decided that here I can stay. This is a perfect being to serve as an instrument. Here he found the subtle ether as one of his own. He found that here I can live and express myself through Savitri. So this is how the more a being becomes capable, the powers now kind of come and dwell. They begin to reside there, because we need a certain quality of purity in the being. A purity, a kind of an emptiness has to be there, so that the power can reside. Just like we clean the temples, and we keep on constantly invoking through prayers, so that the god lives there, now resides there. So that invocation, that continuous cleaning and invocation, and the flow of that power is something which is a necessity for the power to dwell there. Otherwise, in impurity, the power will not able to do much. Impurity, by impurity I mean ignorance, obviously. Yeah. So immortally she conceives herself in him. She is conceiving, she is giving birth to herself in him. And in each of the person, in each of the individual, she will shine through in a different form. That is the beauty, that is the infinitude of the divine. No single person would shine the divine light in one way. It is like the variety that the creator has for himself. Immortally she conceives herself in him. So she has taken hold of this individual, and she is now going to fulfill her immortal ideas through him, through this being. In the creature, the unveiled creatrix works. This is the beauty. Creatrix is the female version for the creator. Creatrix, the Shakti that originated out of the consciousness. In the creature, now creature is, I almost, it's like in a flow with the creation. Creature, creation, creator. It is all one. Kabir says in many dohas, couplets, that you are the clay, you are the vessel which forms out of the clay. You are the hands which are forming the clay, right? Yes, Shreya, sure. Her being in the creature, the unveiled creatrix. Now she is unveiled. Earlier she was veiled, because the ignorance, the veils of ignorance were there. So she was veiled. But as the being becomes porous, capable, receptive, she is able to unveil herself. Unveil. The veil is only of ignorance. So as the ignorance is shed, the veils are shed, the creatrix kind of unmasks itself and begin its work. Her face is seen through his face, as if ki parde chhat gaye, all the curtains are dropped. Her face is seen through his face, her eyes through his eyes. Her being is his through a vast identity. Now, this is the unification that we were referring to earlier that has happened owing to the shedding of the veils of ignorance. Her being is his. So there is a unification that has happened. The separation has ceased to be. Her being is his. The whole Shakti is at the disposal of that being. Her being is his through a vast identity. Then is revealed in man the overt divine. So now each action, each movement is a divine movement, and not by a mental thought that here I, kind of, this is the divine thing that I'm doing. It's not happening by a mental thought. It is just happening owing to the evolution that happened, owing to the veils of ignorance that were shed by and by, by and by. And now we can say that sahajta has come. We talk about this effortlessness. We talk about being sahaj. Actually, we cannot be sahaj because we are born in ignorance. So we have to put as if a lot of effort, that remembering is an effort, remembrance is a little effort, if one can use it in that word, that manner. So the more I keep on remembering my true nature, disidentifying with my movements of life, that these are just passing movements, or there are other ways also to go into the movement fully and to realize that the movement is just a face value. There is something more hidden behind that movement also. So the more I put effort to know myself, then I reach a state of effortlessness. Now life can be a play. Now I can be effortless in my truest essence. This is the whole journey of our consciousness, from ignorance to, from falsehood or ignorance, being born as an ego, to the dissolution or the seeing that yes, I am not the ego. That is the journey. That is the journey that all of us have to. Seems like a journey actually in time. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So now the being has become the embodiment of the divine. The embodiment of the divine. He is not even working as an instrument. He is not even working as a channel. He is the embodiment of the divine. So there is, because there is no separation, right? Yeah. And I'm sure there would be so much more to these lines. This is just something that we touch upon to come close to these lines. Now the divine can openly act through this being, through the human frame. The divine can act. Mm.
A static oneness and dynamic power descend in him, the integral Godhead seals. His soul and body take that splendid stamp. A long, dim preparation is man's life, a circle of toil and hope and war and peace, tracked out by life on matter's obscure ground.
Yeah. A
And again,
static.
you,
Yeah. Yeah. Please say.
you explained now lines that all denote actually when you become a child of the mother, no? That also.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Because in previous two prayers of meditations, we discussed about that child of divine mother, no? That
G.
yeah, when you
Yes.
explained
Yes.
those, yeah, it reminded me of
Beautiful, yes. That's really nice. Yeah. So a static oneness and dynamic power. Now these are the two sides, two aspects, the Purusha and the Prakriti, the Shakti. A static oneness, the immovable one, and his dynamic power. So when we talk about the story of the creation, we see that how out of the one who just the oneness, how he manifested himself out. And the first thing that came out was Aditi, the Shakti, the mother, who created the manifestation, the dynamic power of creation. So now both these aspects descend in him, descend in him. The immovability and the power, the strength of action, the Shakti, the thing that manifests things in creation. The integral Godhead's seals, as if he is stamped now, this being is stamped now with the two powers of the divine, the immovability and the aspect of the dynamic power, as if he's sealed by the Godhead's stamp. Integral because it's like the complete, the wholeness. So one can be just one side of the power, which is the Shakti, or one can also express the oneness, immovability, right? But when there is a balance of both, so then that is the integral Godhead's seal, as if it's a stamp that is put, that yes, this thing is ready for the manifestation of that static oneness and the dynamic power of creation. His soul and body take that splendid stamp. We go to these, I don't know, I have maybe, I can't remember when did I go last. So, you go to these pubs and bars, for dancing or drinking. So there they put this stamp on your hand, right? So that's how his soul and body now take that splendid stamp as if on himself. There is so much of purity that is required for this, and it is, I think that it is not much of an effort in that sense, that one can do. It is just through the processes of going through lifetimes after lifetimes that even one becomes capable of putting that effort, you know uh, to remove, as if to be able to allow obscurity to go away and to the light to get revealed. Yeah. So this purity, when it happens, the purity when it is ready, the stamp is put. A long dim, this is what lifetimes after lifetimes. This reminds me of, I don't know, there was this Buddhist monk which I used to listen to, Jack Cornfield. And once he was talking about this, again, a Buddhist story. And he was talking about some seeker asking, when will I achieve enlightenment or something like that. And by enlightenment, one means the shedding, again, the shedding of the veils of obscurity. So the answer that he got was that when a space as big as a Grand Canyon in America, when a bird comes and puts a small seed of a grain of a rye or a mustard seed, and when it comes, keep on coming into the Grand Canyon and keeps on putting that seed after seed after seed, and when that Grand Canyon will be full of those seeds, then, so that's just, I think that's just a metaphor of the long journey of the evolution of consciousness. And that's why haste is not recommended. The perseverance is something which is strongly needed on this path. A long, dim preparation is man's life. Dim, why dim? Because it's half lit. We struggle with darkness, and we go through really dark phases, challenges. Some light is there, not fully lit really, the mind only can see only half, the other bigger portion mind cannot see. So that's why a dim preparation. And if one sees, if one takes it on himself, then it looks like a big burden. But actually it's not. It's not, because it's not our journey. It's the divine's journey. So the best that we can do is to go out of the way, to not to become an obstacle. Again, we become an obstacle only because we don't know that we are becoming an obstacle. So the moment I become aware that I am actually obscuring my own path, the path of the divinity itself, one kind of goes out of the way. One surrenders. More and more surrender can happen then. Yeah. Yes. So this eventual transmutation from humanity to divinity, it's a long journey. Long journey, a circle of toil and hope and war and peace. I think we also, who are there today, we have lived enough of these years to see this toil, this struggle, the toiling and the hope, and then war and peace. These are as if they are going in spirals, if not in circles. Uh, we have to go through that. That is the journey. Dragged out by life, means by life force, by the prana, by the shakti that guides, that propels us forward. Dragged out by the life on matter's obscure ground. We talked about the obscurity of the matter in the beginning when Symbol Dawn we were reading. The dumbness of the matter, the fathomless zero that matter is, the inconscience. So the life force is the guiding force, the Shakti that wants to always move ahead and ahead and ahead. It never stops. It may get obscured for some time, but it never stops. Right? It takes another life. Even no matter if one lifetime so-called fails, one decides, okay, I don't want to live now. Enough of the dampening of the light of life. No matter, one goes through a little process and then takes another birth. So it's like a toiling is happen again and again, and the life force will never stop. It will never cease to be. That is the quality, that is the inherent nature of the life force. Dragged out by life on matter's obscure ground. So it's the journey appears really hard. It's not a easy one for anyone. This is the path, yeah, of continuous alternations of struggle, and then we have some ease, and then another struggle comes, then some ease comes, some then friction with the other forms of life, kind of clashes with the other forms of lives, then again some peace, then some assistance from the friendly so-called appearances, so that all is the process, goes on and on. Yeah. Yes. So maybe we read just last few lines and then we wind it up for today. Yeah.
In his climb to a peak no feet have ever trod, he seeks through a penumbra shot with flame, a veiled reality half known, ever missed, a search for something or someone never found, cult of an ideal never made real here, an endless spiral of ascent and fall, until at last is reached the giant point through which his glory shines for whom we were made, and we break into the infinity of God.
Yeah. I think these are really all these lines that we have done today. Very revelatory again, as the whole of Savitri is. Very, very revelatory lines. They reveal something to us. In his climb to a peak, no feet have ever trod, uncharted path. And this may also mean that when it says no feet have ever trod, it may also mean that perhaps by the time you are there, you are not there. So, just like Kabir says, प्रेम गली अति सांकरी जामे दो ना समाए, जब मैं था तब हरि नहीं, अब हरि है तो मैं नहीं. So two cannot be there. Two cannot be there. So when one reaches that peak, one is not there. There is no one who has reached. That one is not available. That is the beauty. In his climb to a peak, no feet have ever trod. He seeks through a penumbra shot with flame. So in this climb, which appears like a climb to this peak where no one has perhaps been there, this complete embodiment of the divinity. He seeks as if he's seeking through twilight. He's half darkness, twilight. It's like not much light is there. Penumbra, half darkness is there. And sometimes which is lit by flashes of flame, for example, flame of energy and aspiration, that, one gets this self-motivation again and again in life to go on and on and on. So he seeks. How is the seeking going on, progressing itself? He seeks through a twilight, a dark, half-lit, shot with flame. In between the flashes of flame come and go, come and go. A veiled reality, half known, not even half known. We don't even know what we don't know. We don't even know what we don't know. Ever missed. And when he says ever missed, this reminds me today I was just happened to pick up a very old newspaper and on which there was this interview of a tennis star. Maybe you remember her name, Mary Pierce. And she was sharing about her journey as a tennis sports person, and really kind of we get to see only the medals and the trophies and all that. We don't see the toil and the struggle behind what shines. So she was sharing that she really had a very difficult relationship with her dad, and because the dad was her coach for a long time, and very, very difficult relationship. And she was looking for something. She was missing something. This phrase called ever missed. We keep on missing something, as if something is missing from my life. And she was also feeling that. And then she came across with a friend, again a tennis player, who shared some gospel with her, and there she found kind of solace in Christianity. So she turned a Christian, because she then started to really find a lot of solace in Jesus or words of Bible or all that. So this veiled reality, which is veiled obviously by her own will, half known and ever missed. We forever keep on missing this, and we don't know what is it that I'm missing. We sometimes think I'm missing this person, I'm missing maybe that job, I'm missing marriage, I'm missing kids, I'm missing maybe traveling to a faraway destination. These are the names that we put on these missing. But I don't know, I'm just kind of extrapolating on it, that we keep on missing as if something ever missed. A search for something or someone never found. Beautiful lines. A search for something or someone never found. Cult of an ideal never made real here. As if we are worshipping an ideal, and which has not been really come to reality in this mortal plane. I don't even know what I am worshipping. never made real. I don't even know what I'm seeking, because that which I'm seeking is veiled. It is there, yet it is not there. Feels as if it's not there, and it's not an it. The words obscure what we want to say. So, cult of an ideal never made real here. Here means on the mortal plane. An endless spiral of ascent and fall. This is what we feel as we go along in the life's journey. Oh my God, I'm still there. I'm still there. I thought, many years of sadhana have happened, but these are still there. Yes, they are still there. Yet, things change. We feel that we are still there, but we are not. We can never be again there. We can never step into the same water twice. The water has changed, we have changed. So we are not running around in circles, we are actually moving ahead in spirals. And at times it may give an appearance that I am not progressing at all, but progress is happening. The pace is really slow. We may want it to be higher or not, I don't know. But yet it is happening. The spirals are happening. You know? An endless spiral of ascent and fall, an ascent and fall, an ascent and fall. And yet the progression is also happening. The progression, again by progression I mean the continuous shedding of the veils of ignorance, until at last is reached the giant point. Giant point. Usually point is always small. It says giant point. Until at last is reached the giant point through which his glory shines, for whom we were made. We are made for the one, in the one, for the work of the one. The only thing is that we forget. And the forgetfulness also, again, we don't have to put it as a burden on our shoulders that, oh my God, I'm forgetting, oh my God, I'm forgetting. Not like that. As and when we become capable, we remember. We remember. And we break into the infinity of God. Now, more and more it becomes clear that this life is not my life. More and more it becomes clear that I should actually get out of the way. And when I am saying I should actually get out of the way, it is a reference to the ego or the ignorance. One and the same thing. That, yeah, okay, I'm capable now. I feel ready. I can stop being myself. More like that. Yeah. Yeah. And this also refers to the continuous assimilation of life experiences, life after life, life after life, a long journey, and then a culminating stage is reached where this now transition from the ego to from humanity to divinity now is almost there at the juncture. Yeah. Now the limitations of the lower nature more and more get erased, right? And this again, one cannot force it to happen. It cannot be forced. I don't feel, I personally don't feel it can be forced. Yeah. Yeah. So I think if there are any comments we can take, else we can just call it a day here or an evening.
The second line this time he sees Sambra short this flame.
Huh.
Related, but you had given me that book, Infinite Self.
G.
That there was this thing that how the universe tries to show us, right? Like there are calls and stuff, and suddenly you see a light and you feel that high, but unless you are sincere and you make an effort to stay
Yeah.
there, you
Yeah.
lose it. You
Yeah.
again are shown, and then if you don't catch on to it, you lose it. So
Yeah.
that
Yes.
short with flame, or you also say about those wake up calls, right? Like
Yeah.
how, so again, kind of was like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being there. Yeah.